All right. Great sayings. A person only needs a couple of knives. I think that's kind of dumb for everybody that's sitting here. You can only use one knife at a time. Here's the one that's, is it sharp? How many times have you heard that? I sharpen mine on a grinder. Okay? Well, I don't want to know you. Today we're talking about 300s. We're not talking about 110s. We're not talking about Kalingas. You are here in my room. And this is me, right up here. AKA 300 bucks on the blade forums. There's no 110ers allowed talking. It is 300s. Oop. I've already messed up, haven't I? I don't either. Yeah, let's try it again. All hail the king, 110. The king is dead. This is 110 world. I just broke my pointer. It's supposed to look like this. Do I look like it? Ah, there it went. Aha! Now I look like it. Long live the king. So, we're talking 300s here. I'll take that off. Well, I had to get a photo. Let's get started. The first real buck knife is the 117 lifeboat knife. And they're very rare. I actually have heard some of y'all say you got one. They were, you know, CJ said last night that they only made straight knives there at first, but no, they took these out of World War II surplus, and then they would forge a blade. Here's their buck. You know, here's the brass rivet in it. Be careful. They're rare, they're expensive, and they fake easy. So you got to be really careful buying those. A couple of months ago, somebody was trying to sell one on gunbroker.com for $4,000. I think the same guy later sold it on eBay, and I was gone turkey hunting in Kansas for like $400. So I was shaking my head on that one. I missed it. So watch for fakes. All right, let's talk about some nomenclature real quick. I keep hitting the wrong button, guys. There we go. You know, there's all that great knife language, and we're going to use some of it, but I kind of go common. And so here's your clip blade, your sheep's foot blade, your spay blade. This is the front. Those are bolsters. These are rivets, blade rivets, spring pins or spring rivets. Escutcheon, I've learned to spell escutcheon, but let's just call it a shield. It's easy to get by that way. And the tang is the unground portion of the blade. Here, I'm not going to show this picture again, I don't think. You know, this is yeah, it's a foreign knife. But look, if you can't see it on this wall, but buck's been, or camellias has been ground off, and then that's pad printed in the spot. So in a sense, that is a buck knife, but it's not. Not by our standards anyway. Okay. Here's a fancy one. Somebody home jigged a Delrin scale. But it's not too bad a job, really. These are called easy open notches. We'll talk about those. There's reverse view or backside. And then here are liners, scale liners, spring liners, brass liners, whatever you want to call them. And here's single, here's double. Those will come into play in talking about 300 nomenclature. I'm gonna blow along here because we don't have but a little bit of time, and I got a whole lot of information. All right, here's number one. The first contract knife that Buck made with Schrade, they went outside and sourced their pocket knives when they decided they needed to go in and provide a pocket knife to people. They selected Schrade. Not bad, you know, they had a pretty good knife. They were well known. This is the very first one. It's not marked. It's actually a little bit bigger than a 301 later, even the Camillus and the Buck 301s. It's a little bit longer, and the blade is just a little bit longer than the regular 301. But that's number one. Here's the groove bolsters. That's the key. You see a groove bolster, it's a number one. No other knife has that. All right, here's the first contracts. Number one, the groove bolster, they gave that up. They went to a smooth bolster as number two. They both say made in the USA. This is number one. It does not have Buck on the backside. Schrade has a kind of an S curve too you can look at in large rivets. So those big rivets sure come into play. Later on they're smaller on other companies. Number one, smooth. Number two, Buck. Both blades. Still no model number. They went through the whole time with no model number. 303s are the same way. I didn't show a blank one because you'd already saw that one, but it's the same way. Buck on both blades. Big rivets, S shape, and I'll show you some more stuff here in a minute. 305s. There was a debate a while. Did Schrade make a 305? No. I'm saying no. They did not ever make a 305. There's all kinds of different rivet positions and sizes and stuff. These are all Camillus made knives. They're all Buck, made in the USA. Some of them are blank on the back. Some of them have 305 in the tang. Some have 305 on the back. Oop, went too far. I wonder how you back up. Yeah, I can't do it. All right, let's go on. We don't have time. I'll be real careful clicking. Why did Buck quit Schrade? It's because the way the knife was built. Here is an example. Don't cut too hard. The brass liner inside, I think that was, now here we go. This is the Swindon or blind pivot pin, and they assemble the knife. No pin shows on the outside of the bolsters, but a brass plate holds the pin in the pressure of cutting. And so people had a tendency to bend that brass plate out, or as you can see here, the pin would start to deform and that blade would change or even break. And then when it went back to Buck, it had to have the knife completely disassembled to repair that. And with their Buck's guarantee, here's the slot that you slid as you assemble the knife. That head went up in that little slot. And with their guarantee, you know, every knife had to be fixed. And so that was money. So probably when the contract came due, they said, you know, there's a better way of doing this. But let me tell you, there's nothing sexier in the black saw cut scale Buck 300s than a Schrade. It's got that sexy curve on it. One of the other things you'll have is a long, whatever that thing is on top of the blade. That's the slide we missed. And so you can always recognize it. Well, Roy says happy trails to you till we meet again. Does anybody know what Dale's horse name was? Buttermilk. You get it. There you go. Get a prize. You get to go buy a knife. Okay, you want to collect. We're gone to Camillus, and I keep trying to call it Camillus my whole life. Camillus. That's that Okie in me, calling it Camillus. You want to have a little collection, take to a place you want to start right now. It's going to take 48 knives to go from 1966 to the 1989. 48 knives. And that's only the 301s, the 303s, the 309s and the 305s, 48 knives. Let's see, I've been doing this 11 or 12 years, like really hardcore. You know, back in the old days when eBay was cheap. And I still need 4 knives. And that's, so you want to be a collector? Join in. And here's why we went to Camellias. Let's just call it Cami from now on. Camis had through the bolster pins. And so if you broke the tip off a blade, and with Buck's warranty, you just drove the pin out, slid another blade in, drove the pin in, and buffed the heads off. You know, think of that as far as the time of your employees. It was really quick. And so we've switched to another major knife manufacturer while you're getting organized, thinking about doing your own thing someday. And off we go with Cami. Swedge, that was what I was trying to think of, the swedge. Schrades will have a swedge that goes down to the pin. And the other day, somebody pointed out that I was calling the little nick a French nick, and that they said, no, long nicks are French nicks. And so, do we have a vote on that? Is that what they are? So the other ones are finger nicks or small nicks. Now, I think that was David Martin on Blade Forums. If some of y'all know David, you'd know that. Anyway, here we are. The swedge extends down past the nick, way down here to the bottom. Look at the nick. It's wider, but has a little shallow look, and it's a deep look on this one, and darker, and it's deeper. Both made in the USA. Schrades curve. Cami's a little straighter. The ends are a little straighter. You know, Schrades are a little rounder. That's the way you tell the difference really fast. When you're standing there at the flea market and you want to tell the guy, no, that's only worth $10. But you know it's the first model Schrade, and you don't want to let him know that. Okay. Isn't that how it works? I mean, we're all used car salesmen, aren't we? The first model Camis had 2 versions each. They had a version with double liners and a version with single liners. If you look on the springs, I swear, this is why they do it. It's in the assembly process. This spring is thinner in width, and that's why you see a double liner in there, and this spring is wider. You'd have to mic them to know, but it's just because of the blades being on one spring. We're going to talk about that in a minute. 2 versions, both models, 301s and 303s, both the same way. Both made in the USA, no model number. You just have to have faith. 305s. All right, here's a great division. We could even take a vote here at the show to see what we want to do. There are splitters and there are lumpers. If you're a splitter, you believe that there is a large reverse nick for the pin blade on a 305, or you believe there is a small reverse pin nick for the 305. Boy, they're pretty close, aren't they? You know, I always thought, I wonder if those are done by hand or by machine. If they're done by somebody with an operator who sets it in a device and then pulls a lever, well, you know, maybe they were having a good day and they just did a little deeper grind. I don't know. What I'm going to say is I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to call it a 305. If you want to split it and make another variation, you're on your own. Okay, finally in about this time, and I have some sheets we're going to hand out to you that shows all these timelines. And Mr. Toffs hadn't made it yet, but I don't see him. And when he gets here, I'll give him credit for making that original sheet back from the Idaho handout. Here's a 309, and you can see it's the same way. It has doubles and singles. And then we start going into the version 2 models, and they have the model number on the back. Scale rivet still, but model number on the back. That's the first issue for version 2 Camis. This will all make sense when you see the sheets, but the printing's so small I didn't hand them out because you'd had a hard time reading it while we were looking up here at the same time. All right, why are all these double single things going on? It's called crinking. Here's a fancy knife word. Crinking. Blades are bent slightly at the tang so that they can fit over one spring. Here's your double scales on this side. You can definitely see this blade's crinked over, and this blade is slightly fits in there. So one spring runs two blades. It's extra stress on that spring. Sometimes people open both blades at once. And wood carvers, any of you guys that are wood carvers can back me up or not. Wood carvers say they don't like a blade that does not align with the axis of the handle. And so crinking was considered something you just had to do to have a thinner knife. And we move on into camis did it and for a long number of years. Okay, 71 to 74, we're coming down in the middle of cami world, cami time. They start adding new models, 307s, 311s, 313s, 315s, and the big 317s. 301, 303, 309, 305, the big four, the standard four, still going strong. Made in the USA, model number on the back, no scale rivets. We've dumped the rivets off the scale. And here we are in this version from 71 to 74. They'll all be the same way, just like this. Okay, we're going to run through some of the versions of those new ones. Here's the 307 Stockman. Same way, big knife, made in USA, 307 on the back. That's the first version, 307 Stockman. Here's the 311 Trapper, long trapper, made in USA, 311 on the back, no rivets. Oh, I'm sorry, there are rivets. Larry Oden was a generous seller, and he sold me one of a handful in the world of these knives. These are probably prototypes, originally made, and they have rivets in the scale. Y'all start watching for those. You'll have a rare commodity if you can find it. 313 Muskrats, opposite ends, modified spay, modified clip, made in USA, model number on the back. Favorites of raccoon hunters, and squirrel hunters, muskrat trappers, all up and down the Mississippi River. The Yachtsman 315. Anybody's a sailboater or a seaman may know what a marlin spike is, which is that device right here for undoing knots and ropes. 315 on the back, made in the USA on the front. These are all first versions of that. These are first versions of these knives. The big 317, two blades, made in the USA, 317 on the back of the main blade. All right, time passes, new version, new contract. This is why I call it the Big Four. We changed to Buck 303 USA on the tang for this long contract. The Big Four. Now we get into details. Details. We're still in camis, but you're still doing, here's the two varieties. Here's 303 USA. One's got one liner, some's got two liners. You have to play with the liners. And this is all written down. You'll get a sheet on this. The 307, 309, 305, and the 319 have double back spacers only. But you know what? It's just like anything. You're going to find one that probably doesn't fit the category. So, it's not always absolute. The 321 bird knife with the gut hook, the modified clip, it shares the blade with the 313, as you can see here. Here's one that's misbladed, not misbladed. They just ran an overrun and put it in a 321. 313 blade in that 321. And this bird hook, gut hook, I have never seen this in operation by any bird hunter that I was with. We always used our fingers. And so I guess it's for genteel woodcock hunters in the Northeast. I'm not sure. Here is a 319 Rancher. Now, this is more where I grew up, and we have a leather awl so that when a rain breaks, you can stab some holes in it and put it back together and you can ride home. Okay, 322 Congress Well, I guess this was supposed to be a, this is a Smoky Mountain Knife Works exclusive. All three of these are. Smoky Mountain, here comes Smoky Mountain into the play. I guess, was Abraham Lincoln supposed to have carried one of these, or was it Andrew Jackson? I guess it depends on what part of the country you're in. Yeah. And Granddaddy Barlow, that's a big thing, isn't it? No model numbers. No model numbers. Small Barlow. Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Okay, during this period of time that that period from 74 to 98, they made 1 or 2 years, they threw out a stag knife, and it'll have scale rivets. Say Buck 301 USA with scale rivets. They're pretty rare. 303s and 301s is all. Now I told somebody yesterday about these two knives, and if they didn't go down and get them, I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody in your because you didn't go get it. Downstairs there's a mint in the box, $329, just like this one, and I think it has $50 on it. If it is, it's a pretty dang good price. It's got the belt buckle. Here's one unmarked. It came in 2 varieties with American flag. You'll find them unmarked and with unprinted, pad printed, Freedom Trapper with a belt buckle in a box. Okay, yellows. We start a variation of this same time period. Here's a 322 in yellow. Here's a 307 in yellow. Here's a 313 in yellow. Harder to find, made in lesser numbers. This was interesting. I got this, I think Larry sent me this. And you ever wondered what the heck that Cammie sent the knives to Buck? And how they sent, you think Buck sent them boxes and they boxed them and sent them back to Buck? No. It came in this box right here. This had 311s. It had 8 each. They were wrapped in paper and then put in these boxes and sent to Buck to be reboxed. And then Buck used these boxes to hold parts. And on the other end is written some kind of code number for a particular part. And I think it was Larry said that in the factory one time he saw shelves and shelves of these things stacked on shelves with full of different parts with these code numbers written on them. All right. Camulus made versions, details, details, details. We're going into the 98s and the 74 through 98s. And now the lecture's done with Joe here. I'm completed. No, just kidding. Here's Mr. Charles Toffs. I would like him to sit up here beside me so that you can kick me in the shins. And this is my mentor, along with Larry. He was one of my mentors. If you all remember, he did the program at Idaho that I'm doing today. And I will pass out his written information to you at the end of this. And let's give him the credit for all that information. It has made me for whatever I am. It's all his information. He's the original. I'm just a showboat. And so it's your credit. So there you go. All right, let's run on. You can kick me in the shin if I say something wrong. 307 Stockmans. Besides that yellow scale, these came in 3 variations. Also, an American folk hero printed blade set that had Paul Bunyan and John Henry. I was told the other day there's even more of those. Somebody was telling me that there's even more of those. I haven't ever seen pictures of them. I'd sure like to see the pictures of those. First Buck made in USA, then Buck 307 USA, and then Buck escutcheon plate. I'm in an argument with somebody right now as to whether Buck made this knife because it says Buck. He's saying Buck made it because it says Buck, and that these are 425M blades. I'm saying no. They just had the deals and put them on there, and they're still Cammie made knives. So I mean, we can take a vote, I guess, and then. Okay.
So if we need those, we got the blades, I don't remember that happening.
Yeah. All right, good. You'd have to know who I'm arguing with to know that that makes me feel good. And I'm not going to say names. but he's argued with some of y'all also. Anyway, here we have Buck made in the USA, and if it's on the video now, he's going to be mad at me. But not really. He just is a detail guy. And Buck made in the USA on 311 Trapper, 311 USA, and no model number. Oh, this is a serrated blade. This is a version with a serrated blade. And I threw this one in because, you know, here's an anomaly with the nick being sticking out of the top of the blade. So some stuff gets through. Now, do you call that collectible or not? I don't know. It's just a mistake. Unique. Yeah, unique up on it. Yeah. Okay, 311 USA, and then there's a model 311 USA with a serrated blade. You can kind of tell that if you've got a fake where somebody has serrated a blade after the fact. Buck always made roundish serrations back in this era on these 300s. They weren't real pointy angular serrations. So if they're kind of roundish, that's a good sign that's an original serration. And you know, that's easily faked by somebody kind of who knows what they're doing. And then, look, Winchester shield. Here's one of the two Winchester knives, the 311 and the 301. So we'll call that a variation and be legitimate about it. And then at the end, the last 5 or 6 years that Cammy made these, Buck 311 USA, you'll see nylon inserts put in here. And what happens is, apparently, just the way things were working, people were slamming the blades home, and the tips were touching here, and maybe they'd knock a little chunk out. And so anyway, here you got nylon bumpers. Put in those, and it's the last model run of this model. 313 Trappers, the Muskrat. Made in USA, number 1, 313 on the back. Buck 313 USA, nothing on the back. And then you have one that'll have a nick and one without the nick. Here we are, we're splitting hairs on the nicks again.
You talking about easy open?
Yeah, easy open nick right there, and then one without the easy open nick. And then the yellow, the rare yellow one. The Yachtsman, boy, whew, now we're into a mess. There's a bunch of variations. Made in USA, Buck 315 USA, bolstered ends. No bolster, no spring rivets, single spring. We're going to look at that in a minute. No bolster, spring rivets, here they are, the spring rivets. Hot stamped Buck on the scale. And one of y'all got one of those out there, I know. There's somebody else, because he and I bid on it at eBay at the last, and he beat me out at the last minute, and I even called him on the phone. And but I didn't cuss him. I just said, if you ever get ready to sell it, let me know. So then it goes on down to special editions, and no bolster, rivets, double back springs. Then special editions. Okay, here you have a single spring and a double spring on those bolsterless editions. And these are toward the end. So you got to pay attention to that too. All right, they had some different ones that were made. Buck made the scales on these. Camulus didn't. I don't think they did. I think these are aftermarket scales that Buck did, or did Camulus put them on? I think. Yeah, that's the way I do too, I think. Anyway, here's micarta in a yellowish micarta. And then here is an America's Cup. And these came in 2 varieties. This one with a pad print. And then there's a limited run of 100 or less with Ted Turner's picture on it in his boat, if you want a Ted Turner picture. And they're another one that you're going to be getting up there with 5 or 6 big $100 bills before you're going to have one in your hand. And I was cheap one time, and I quit bidding at $180. And it sold for like $210. Golly, I made a mistake. Aftermarket etching, There's a gal that does these, or a guy somewhere out in the West Coast, and he's done these a couple of times, and he does the scrimshaw on them. Jerry Quinn has a yellow prototype. He says it's a salesman's rep prototype in yellow. Buck escutcheon on it. And then there's the version that has serrated blades. I don't have one, so I had to show you a cami one. And the serrations are only half the length of the blade, and this is where the serration world changes, and it's not the rounded buck serrations. It'll be the odd ones where you have a big one, little ones, big one, little ones. Goes half the blade. They're real rare. I know you got one, but I don't have one. Maybe you do. All right, what is a marlin spike? What is a yachtsman's knife? This is a deal which explains a lot of things. Here's a little rope. It goes over your shoulder, down to your waist. This clip here hooks into a safety rope as you walk along your sailboat doing stuff underway. Some other stuff to hang things on. And then here's a little string that goes to your little shackle that unlocks the marlin spike, where you pull that down, the marlin spike can flip over in a buck knife. And then, of course, you have the sheep's foot blade to cut rope. And let's see, what am I doing wrong? I always fixed it before. Somebody can hit it maybe over there. Can you figure out how to hit it? Get rid of that so that I've got the mouth. Do you need it? Do you need it, Jack? Okay, we'll go back. Okay, well, back me up, would you? Hit back. I'm sorry. One more. 317s, the big folder. These are you got case and you got cami making a folder that looks a lot like it, but you always got the angular buck bolsters. Big blade, several varieties. Made in the USA, 317, first variety. Buck USA 317, all on one side. Serrated secondary blade. Here, and see the round serrations? It's the buck round, I call it. Anyway, here's one that I found in a coffee can at the Tulsa Gun Show. And at one time, Larry didn't have this one, but I didn't rub it in on him. And he now has one, and I think 2 or 3 other guys now have one that I've discovered, so I thought I was very exclusive. But it's just probably the very first made ones that had that, the very first made ones. They had little rivets on them, and then they got out of that real quick. And maybe a dozen or less known. These are not just pad printed. This is pad printing. This is etching or impression stamping. And there's 3 varieties. These are Smokey Mountain Knife Works, and at least 3. And there's the train for the buck railroader. There's it looks like a John Deere tractor to me for the buck farmer and a combine. And then there's the buck logger, and has a picture of Babe, the Blue Ox, and Paul Bunyan. And good luck if you can find one. They're numbered. This one's numbered 6100. The Rancher, 2 varieties, early and late. Or, this is the oldest, youngest. This serrated blade varies in look. I swear I think they were hand done in the factory. I don't think there's a machine that does that. There may be. They're not stainless steel. They will rust. These are stainless steel, and they're just a smooth on both sides, rounded on the other side. And here you can see there's so much variation. Here's a place they're gouged out right there a little bit. And they're, look, this one's a little wider than this one is. I think they're all hand finished at the factory, done by hand. Here you can see crud and rust and stuff starting to get in the spirals. And you can even see them here. They'll be all rusty all over the tang. So 2 varieties. Never found one with anything. Never found a yellow one. Never found one that said buck on the side. Here we back are to the gut hook. And The 321, you'll find them with 313 blades in them, and a very few rare ones that have the buck shield on it, and very rare ones. And now that I'm telling everybody all this rare stuff, I'll never find one. And there may be a yellow. Okay, we're not going to swear on that one. All right, the Congress, another Smoky Mountain Knife Works, 2 varieties, black and yellow. The Big Barlows, jig bone, yellow, black. Little Barlows, black and yellow. And I need to erase that. I now have a yellow. And they'll say these, you can find them without that on there, and it's one of the, my contention is it's a Camulus closing the factory parts put together. There's a couple of those, but there are some that don't have that printed on it. All right, the California toothpick, same way, they're not printed on there. 3 models, this is called Stagalon. It's an artificial, it's not stag, it's artificial. And then nice jig bones. This one doesn't have printing. You know, there's no model number again, but look, the Stagalon gets to have the buck slanted bolster and the rest of them are straight. Well, I think they made other ones, you know, with other names on them for that. Cammy did. The great big 0334, made in 2000, as you can tell. And there's 2 varieties. The came in a case. These are Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Came in a case, and then you find them without the case is gone. Maybe they were never sold in the case. And then a smooth horn, black horn version. These are all numbered. Every one of them's numbered, except for this one. Note the brass rivet. This is a Camulus factory closed, parts put together knife, and was sold like on eBay or somewhere. I don't remember. I think I bought it on eBay. And they sold, I bet 2 or 3 dozen of them. Somebody did from up in that area. You can tell the sellers on these things that aren't marked, that are parts knives put together, they always live up there by the factory somewhere. Here they're numbered on the bolsters. And just by the coincidence, here's my horn one, and it is 648, and here's the jig bone one, 649. That's, you know, another lucky deal. Just happen to have consecutive numbers. Well, Camulus sails into the sunset. So be careful of the factory sale put-togethers. Aha! Back to 1985. Back to the pot of gold. Buck makes the knives. Here we are. We're into the 80s, back into the 80s, and we invent the date code. And we have this new miraculous shield or escutcheon plate change. And here we have 305s, and it shows you from 1985 to about 89. Am I right? Yeah, 89V. There you go. Not marked. Here we go. 301s and 303s, same way. No date. It's still made by Buck. No date. Small nick, like Joe said. 425M blades. All the way to 89, where it's date code V, where we change back to knife, bolt, and hammer. KBH. I don't type a knife, bolt, and hammer. I'll just put KBH when I type stuff. Well, in 1989, when we changed back, Buck decided, or the story is, there was an outcry that the traditional knife, bolt, and hammer scale was traditional, and we don't like to change. Oh, man. And so they switched back, sort of, because now you have a variation in years. 89 and 88, you'll have, some have, here's an 88 over here with a knife, bolt, and hammer, and then you'll have another 89 that has a buck shield. So right there at the end, it's just like whatever they had in the parts box, they were going on them. So there's no hard and fast rule for 88, 89s. One of the reasons too, besides that you guys love tradition, this pad printing rubbed off pretty easily. And so you'll find a lot of them with the printing off. And if you take a Sharpie and carefully go in there and color it, you know, it looks pretty good. So I'm not going to tell you which one I did that to that you've already seen. But anyway, that's what you got to watch for. All right, in 89, here we are. Stuff happens. Man, right in this 80s, things are happening. You know, everybody was young and vigorous back then, weren't they? And here we have a sheep's foot blade going to the opposite end. Spade blade up here. Well, I do a lot more cutting with a sheep's foot blade than I do spaying anything. So that was a good move. Put this down here, and it has a particular cutting value. Sheep's foot blade is tough, thick, and you know, if you wanted to kind of cut on something or you wanted to whittle, whittlers like that blade, it was a good move to swap ends with it. We're into the changes. Here we change the construction types. And I'm not paying attention to time, Larry. You'll just have to stop me. And we're about to change to a 3-spring era. Here's the, still doing brass liners. Buck's making these big 4, 301s, 303s, 309s, and 305s. They're still putting brass liners in there. Still using the 2-spring. See how one's thick and one's thin? And we're still using the 2-spring method, but we swap. Now we're going to go with a spring for every blade, and every blade aligned straight with the handle. But we still have brass scales. No crinking. All right. Here's an 86 through 89. They made 301s with serrated blades. Not all of them. They were just special made ones. As again I say, the rounded buck serrations. They're very aggressive. They were made on a knife that has the buck shield and a knife with the knife and bolt and hammer shield. As long as he doesn't say like this, I'm going on, you know, and say that's the case. Okay, good. You can just look blank and then I'll go on. And so there you go. All right, during this 1 year, 1989 only, Buck offers a stag. Later they offer it several times, but right now, 89, it's just a stag handle, 1 year. That's why they're hard to find with the 89 date code and a stag handle. Okay, here's 303s just as in the picture, and but between 86 and 94, you had all kinds of changes going on, and sometimes it's real hard to see. Here we went from the shields, you know, to back to the old knife, bolt, and hammer. Here we went from brass liners to ended up being all stainless steel with nickel, silver bolsters and liners. And then we kind of stabilized down here in the early 90s. And again, you're going to get a handout on all this. Then in 90, we invented the integral liner. And I said all stainless, but it's nickel silver, isn't it? I believe it is. I think it's nickel silver, not stainless. I think that was one of those 12 at night scenes that I was typing up about a week ago. And here's a piece of the Delrin plastic scale. I'm not going to say the scientific chemical word for Delrin, polymethyl mexa something or other. And here's your integral scale plate. It's made onto the liner. And here the liner, the plastic liner, is inserted hot and pressed into place around the, well, we don't need it. Just hold on to it. And that's how that's done on the integral liners. I hit the wrong button again, Jack. And we can even go back. Or next, it doesn't, well, let's go back. There, that's good. Okay, jig bone, 1991. Buck comes out with a jig bone knife, and it's right during a transition period. This is the brown jig bone. Came in the all 4 of the big 4 varieties. I don't have a 309. We're getting there. Okay. Here's the version with brass liners, and that would have been 1990. And then in 91, when they switched over in 90 to all 3-spring, all integral type construction, you have a version with 3 springs and nickel silver bolsters. So you have two complete sets of 4.
And you got the shiny brass, shiny scales, and then you got
some dull, they're duller.
dull ones, right?
Yeah.
The first ones came out were dull.
Yeah, kind of odd looking.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's type 1 and type 2. Okay, the clipper. This is a 305 where we're going into a market trying to make a little keychain knife. Looks like mainly for women, but maybe for a guy in a suit pants with a tie at work. And we have a little scissors on them. You have pink, lavender, blue, red, black, and jig bone. And these are all smooth scale knives, all smooth scale. This is a saw cut red, and there's also a black saw cut. And the difference is we upgraded right at the end before they were discontinued, and we put in Swiss Army knife scissors. These scissors were less quality than Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife cut a finer thread. Watch out for, when you're buying them, that this plug here in the blade well, where the scissors rest on that, is not broken off. If it's broken off, your scissors will go down so deep in the blade well you can't dig them out with your fingernail. Unless, well, a woman might could, but a man can't. So watch for that. That's something to open the blade and look and criticize the guy for trying to sell that. And in the jig bones, because this is a pressured in scale material is pushed in hot, the jig bone has a metal one, and it'll be a little silver thing in there. Okay, we introduce a new model. All this time, Schrade's models are dying. All this period of time, Schrade's are discontinuing. Yeah, Camillus, thank you. 312 and the 314. The 312 came out first in multiple models. I may not have them all listed. Let me see. Smooth black scale, very few of those, not saw cut. Then we go to saw cut black with a brass rivet, with a brass spring rivet. Saw cut black with a stainless steel rivet. And then one year, somebody left-handed was employed in a chair that a right-handed person needed to be in, and all the scale rivets are upside down. I mean, all the scale shields are upside down. Now, go figure. But anyway, that's called the inverted shield year. I think it was 1 year, wasn't it? Or pretty, just real, yeah.
I didn't know that there were that many of them about.
Yeah, there's very few. Probably we're coming up to a new thing called the Edge 2000. Here we are in the late 90s. Probably the 312s never underwent that blade grind changed, and they were discontinued in 99 price list. All right, here's some fancy versions of it. Here's an ABCA, American Blade Collectors Association knife that was issued. It's issued in X, I think that's 90. What did I say? 91. And has engraved bolsters. This is a wooden scale, and it's in blue, a blue birch, I believe it is. And it's not anything fancy like stone. And then there's a probably the overruns were sold, or we went ahead and sold some more. And that was big. That was during the turquoise era. Everybody, you know, that's when David's knives were hot to handle. All right, PRCA is introduced. And this is a new thing in the catalog. And the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association has their own knife. It's a 312. We'll talk about those in a little bit. And they had a brown bone. And then we had an ebony that was a limited edition and numbered. Your 314s. It came in 2 varieties. It had a brass rivet and a stainless steel rivet, and then a plain brown bone, and then it had a couple of these that were numbered. This is the American coal miner, and there were some other people too that had one. And then again, ebony, and it's numbered on the back of the blade. Here's one of the other people, and I don't know if this is Buck or Smoky Mountain Knife Works. It's a silver dollar. That's a 1993 real American silver dollar. And then an impression of it right here in the handle. And it just says the Silver Buck right there. 1993, 1 year. Made in the box. You get the little box with it. Okay, let's go on and talk about Workman series. These are a new marketing scheme that Buck came out with, trying to, I'm guessing, and you know, you can go into a hardware store or a lumber yard and set up a knife display where traditionally maybe nothing was there, because you're pointing the display, you're pointing your materials to workmen, carpet layers, carpenters, you know, electric installers, and so it's another market, another way of getting into people that aren't real pocket knife people, where they're just buying anything, you know, that they come across. And so it's called the Workman series. And as far as the 300s are concerned, it had many more models than this in other model numbers. But in the model numbers, it was just the multi 100, the multi 200, and the multi 300. They came in boxes and clear clam packs, and they're the 303, the 309, and the 305. And there was never a 301. Multi-years, and they'll come with buck and with knife bolt and hammer shields. These are, and they'll have stainless steel rivets or brass rivets. These are all saw-cut gray plastic handles. There are 2 pad prints. This is the oldest one, and it says Buck Workman, and then later on, right at the end, before they're discontinued, it says Buck Knives, Tools for the Workman. All right, here's the Yellow Horse editions in the 90s when turquoise was hot and everybody had to buy silver and turquoise. And they only came in those models, the 309, the 312, and the 314. Now they're all in the you know, we're not talking 112s, we're not talking 110s. This is the 300, the ones that David did in the 300 that are factory production, that the factory offered in their catalog. And 2 or 3 different versions of them, and the 312s, the 314s, and the 309s. I've never seen in hand a 309. I've not had one in my hand. Okay. Okay. They're pretty hard to find. Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. This is not a buck hat. The buck stops here, PRCA. And that was issued by the PRCA. But anyway, and I threw in a 525 just because I had one. And they came in the 309 and the 312s, PRAC pad printed. And one of the probably the rarest 300 right up there, the rarest 300 knife is a blue Fibron scale 312. That's a rare knife anyway. But the pad printed to PRCA blue Fibron handle knife may be the rarest 300 series buck knife ever made. I've never even seen a picture that anybody ever had. I think Larry, he's smiling, he must have one. He won't say. 310 Whittler. You know, whittling, wood whittling got kind of popular and especially for a while. And so we've come out with a whittler, a knife, the smaller knife fits in your hand, and we took a 309, we added a coping blade, see the coping blade, made it a 3-spring knife, made it wider, and it's called the 310 Whittler. And if you'll look, for hair splitting, we like to do that. There's the early model with a tiny finger nick, and the later model with a bigger finger nick. And they're still going. Somebody said they discontinued. That is not the case. They've kind of varied year to year sometimes, but Bass Pro Shop currently has them in their catalog. 1995 to 1998. The finish can be varied. It's hard to see on this wall, but there can be a brushed finish or a polished finish. You can look at these and they seem a little shinier. That one's not. That one's brushed. This one's shiny. That's a little bit brushed. I think those two are shiny and this one's brushed. So it's just a finish, just a variance, an odd thing that you see. Yeah, tumble polished, you're right. And it's just something to talk about. I don't think you need to have a collection of tumble polished and brushed, but do what you want to do. 1998, 1 year only. 1 year only. Brown bone, limited edition with a medallion in the handle. Nice looking brown bone, big rivets. But like any time you say, here's the one thing at all, they came in 2 year models. So lots of times you'd introduce a knife, it'd start being made in November, and so you date it that year, and then it goes on into the next year, and then it's discontinued, so you end up a 1 year knife with 2 year models. And they made a 310 in this. So it's the big 4 and then a 310. All right, let's just do oddball, fun stuff real quick. And whenever you get down to getting close, Larry, let me know. And here's just different. You got the money, Joe's got the time. You know, when I win the lottery, you're going to see a $300, 303. And they'll make me a custom plate and put on there, and it'll say $300. But if you got the money, they got the time. Con Lee and all kind of people I don't even have any idea. And this knife is one, and I got it from Mother. It says Hubbard on it, old Mother Hubbard. Sad joke, right? And it says Hubbard on it, some company named Hubbard. And and these are on the scales. Of course, Winchester did it, and some other people did it. And then pad printed on the blades, Champion, Ducks Unlimited, Mobay Chemicals, Chronotron. Anyway, a lot of the companies, I mean, there's a market there. People want to have 500 knives to give out to their salesmen or their buyers, and so you pad print them on the blade. More oddballs, Tifco. I can't even read that one. But then you can still have different prints on them. And then that's that one that was jigged. Somebody jigged, homemade jigged, a Delrin scale. There's that Remington where either the camis ground off or bucks ground off, and they put a Remington plate in there and pad printed Remington on the tang. And then here's a real oddball, Chuck Buck, where it's signed. All right, this cut me to the bone. My wife brought me this the other day. Are y'all like this? I fixed it so that when you get the DVD, you can put it on your computer and reprint it. Put your name here. Craig, my bathroom sink has stopped again. Here I am relaxing. Sink stopped up, call Craig. Loose knob, call Craig. Stuck drawer, call Craig. Why am I the only one around here who can fix anything? Well, you're the only one who can find anything on your workbench. Well, maybe if I wasn't always fixing stuff, I could clean this place up. Man, that cut me to the bone. Okay, now we go into hollow ground Edge 2000 blade shapes. We were flat grounding everything down to a certain point, and we tapered a little bit for a while, and then in 2099, down in here, we started hollow grinding the blades. We re-edged the blades. They re-edged the blades as they did investigations and were improving heat treatments, and so it tapered the blade to a thinner blade with a good heat treatment. It was able to take the cutting force, so we weren't having any chips or anything like that. So over a period of time, there was some transition through here. Aha! Mr. Hunt would like to have this photograph in his presentation today if I could have figured a way to do it. But there are a few Arium etched 300s. Somebody sent a man to me, and he offered these knives to me, and he had them. I failed to ask where he got them at the moment, and I'll redo that and ask him where he originally got them. This knife needs to go to Leroy. It is not in line with the back springs when it's open. It's got a gap, and so it's been, it just needs, the blade's obviously not the knife blade that came out of the knife. It's a separate blade, and so we'll have to tune that up a little bit. This one's fine. The Tiger knife is fine. It's in alignment. Very rare. All right, we're getting down to the end, so I'm getting close. And California to Idaho. Here we are in the era. We're moving to California to Idaho, and we're going to have some pad printings. We're going to have some Idaho stampings on the blades, post falls, leaving California, going to Idaho. All four knives, 301, 303, 309, and 305 were issued in these printings in 2 versions, and then Smoky Mountain Knife Works reissued them again without medallions here, and so there's 16 versions of it, I believe, is how you really look at it, counting the Smoky Mountain Knife Works. I'm getting close to the end, guys. All right, into the modern era. We did the Delrin scale changed to Valox, V-A-L-O-X. It's a typo in my where I type things. I typed his stuff up and we typed it, or Pat typed it, I didn't, but it wasn't her mistake. And yellow, Chuck Buck redwood, diamond wood, and I'm much more, Joe's the only one here, but I'm more attracted to the light wood like this than I am this dark wood. Now why, I just don't know. It's an artistic thing. I just like this better than I do the dark. And you have to dig around. Yesterday I went down and dug through the 303s and I didn't find one. This is a 5th year that they did the diamond wood, and they put an emblem on the back of them. And so there's another variety you have to have. And then here is the green paper stone. Yeah, green paper stones came in 3 varieties. It came in two tins. This is a double tin, and then there's a single tin that's fancier. I didn't get the fancy one. I'm starting to get particular. All right, 2002, 2003, poly pearls, and they were made for Cabela's or Bass Pro. Whatever. They're poly pearls. They're made for somebody, but Walmart, that's it. Made for Walmart, you're right. And came in white, but you mix that stuff up in a jar to put it in the handle, and we got some gray. Now this black one may have been a prototype. You don't find very many of those. I handed it to Joe in Idaho, and he'd never seen it. And so I also have one that's black on one side and white on the other. And probably maybe I'm calling it a salesman sample just to make it sound good. Whether it was or wasn't, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then we've had the bone and malachite, and snakewood, and mammoth ivory, petrified mammoth ivory. And then throughout this period of the 90s, we've done some jigging with stag. And here's your year models up here, and different kinds of jigging. And we also have elk in there also. Here's an elk scale with tracks. Smoky Mountain Knife Works came out with Christmas tins, and they have 305s, and then you have 3 tins, or 3 tins, no, 303s in there in the big tins. Here's the prettiest knife ever made, in the 300 series by Buck. It's beautiful. It's got all polished, high gloss. What is that black stuff? It's not ebony. It's onyx. Onyx and pearl, and silver or nickel in the spacers. It's one-bladed, but it's probably the fanciest 300 you can have.
What frame was that? What frame was that?
It's a 303. It's got a 303 blade, and it's a unique frame because they ground around on the end. One-bladed. They trimmed it up to make it svelte. All right. The Value series. These are offshore knives. We're not going to talk politics. We're just going to talk knives. Look at this close-up. You find a mistake on that for me. You find a place that doesn't look good. You find a place that it doesn't fit. The fit and finish of the 4 knives that I have are excellent, very excellent. This knife is as good as anything that has come out of Idaho as far as fit and finish. And so this is my statement. Bottom line, I'm a collector. I'm not interested in the collection of the Value series, so I don't buy any of them. Bucks of this price and good quality are needed by many people. And that's true, they are. Young guys starting out, families and stuff, they can't buy $100 knives. And I'm as American as anybody after saying that. I wear a flag pin on every Sunday. You ever wondered where the heck they're made? Here they are, right here in Yangjiang. And I didn't even try to for the state, that's the town. And it's over here, Hong Kong's over here somewhere. And look that up on the website sometime. Man, they got a Chamber of Commerce. And it's got real pretty pictures, and the big picture right in the middle of the Chamber of Commerce is a whole bunch of knives. There's no buck knife there, but apparently it's a cutlery center. And there you go. That's your location, if you ever wanted to know. That's the last slide. Where do we go from here? What do you want in the 300 series? To me, these ads were when I was 14 and 13 and 16. Were in sports afield and outdoor life. To me, this is a buck knife. This is why I'm a buck knife collector. Is this right here? You know, when it was in scouts, there was guys that had scout knives, but then we had buck knives. We were a higher, older kid. We had a buck knife. We didn't have no scout knife. And so, to me, that's buck knives. Do I want to get away from some of the tradition? Do I want to start having weird kind of stuff, modern things? I don't know. I don't think so. I can go with the paper stone because I'm an environmentalist. I'd like to see premium steel, every once in a while. At least Sandvik. I would like to see something nice, jig bone. I'd like to see smooth yellow bone, something like go back and do a heritage knife from Grandpa's knife. That would be nice, and promote it that way.
Just something different every year, so we'll have something to...
Yeah, other than just changing the date code. Every once in a while, throw in something else. All right, guys, I'm going to be here wearing this orange hat for the rest of the time. My wife, Pat, has 50 handouts. I think that's enough for everybody. I've got a clipboard over here. If you want to email me, you can sign up. I'll email you back. We can start a 300 talk, and we can compare notes. If you want to be a collector, you can let me know, and we'll start helping you watch for stuff that I've already got. We'll start our own little subculture. So adios.